we didn't get our scrimmage, but it's coming around soon, and I'm excited. I think that we're kind of reaching the end of the dividends that we can pull as evaluators and fans from this intra-team competition, because at this point, we're kind of seeing what we're seeing. It's good for guys to get reps, but they know each other so well. It's this next phase where I think we're going to get the most, we're going to get the next level, much better and much more dialed in evaluations than we have now. But we got some good stuff today. I'm going to get into that. We've got Tim Bowens, back if you're a 90s guy in early 2000s, Tim Bowens is, without a pun, as big as it gets. He got pulled into the Ring of Honor. 2 had a throw. Smith is back. Jackson, Bell, Phillips, a little thing on Peely, Kamar versus Paul, and then some Connor Williams news. What I'm going to get into, guys. But I'm going to be doing things differently for about a week. I'm taking my youngest son, who's never been to New York City before. Going to fly in. Going to give him a full week's view of that, seeing where I grew up and all this other stuff, going through New York. So I'm going to be doing my coverage on the road, a little bit like the live format, but putting it out like this. So I just want to give you the heads up. That's what I'm going to be doing for a week. I can't wait. I'm really excited. He's never seen it. He always hears stories. His older brother and sister, they've seen it. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a phenomenal thing. But just expect that kind of coverage. I'm going to do my best to have the best quality, but that's the way it's going to be, guys. So anyway, before I get into all the good stuff, the likes, the subscribes, the views, the comments, hitting the notification bell, all that stuff is how I stay in the business. The only way it happens is through you. Everything happens through you and my sponsors. So I want to give you a shout out and a shout out to them, because without the two of you, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so a lot of good stuff. Tim Bowens was a real darn good pick for us. And I still remember hearing about he had missed 3 toes in like the Dolphins Digest, 3 toes from a lawnmower accident. And every time I mow the lawn after that, I always thought that I was always like extra careful. I cannot believe how good this guy was missing 3 toes. It screws your balance up. He was a stud. I still remember the Jets Dolphins game in New York with the fake spike. And I remember I was sitting there and it was the third down argument to go on the 4th down between Shula and Marino. And they decided to punt. Shula decided to punt despite what Marino wanted. But it was that next drive where the defense came up with a huge stop to force the Jets to pump. And I got to go back and watch him. But I remember as clear as day, quote unquote, that Tim Bowens had a big stop, even maybe a negative play on that critical drive, which eventually led to us going down the field. And then Dan Marino sticking it right up the wazoo of the Jets with the fake spike. And so Tim Bowens was always just, I loved him. And I'm so happy that he is getting this honor. He deserves the honor. Zach Thomas, if it wasn't for Gardner and Bowens in front of him, doing their 2 gaps, sucking up the blocks, maybe not getting the best stats that they could get, he would never have been what he was. Tim Bowens is a nice, humble, awesome guy. I could not be any happier. So that's the deal on that. Just go back and check out Tim Bowens if you were too young for him, or if you were around at the time. I'm going to go back and do a little run on him to remember it was just the good old days of the 90s. So then we got the 2 throw. My guy Storm Duck was involved. And, Storm got beat by Tua and he got beat by Hill. But come on, it was pretty good coverage. It forced the ball to be put out a little farther ahead of the receiver of Hill. Hill made a darn nice catch. You can see over here, Javon was playing over the top as well, and he got there maybe late, whatever. It looked like there was some man coverage going on with Storm Duck, but the ball was thrown right out in front of Hill. He made that diving catch. It was a nice throw. I mean, maybe you could say, it could have been, but that was over the top. It was a long throw. It was that's not a noodle. That's not a Chad Pennington arm throw there. So it's nice to see Tua and Hill connecting over the top. It wasn't against Ramsey. It was against Storm Duck, but there's pretty darn good coverage, pretty darn good throw. So that was a talk of the day. Speaking of coverage, Cam Smith returns. I didn't hear any reports on how he did. Out from 3 yards per carry said he was doing the kettlebell jumps on the box, and so that meant he was close to being returned, and he was right on that. He's back. Let's see how it plays out. This guy can't get injured anymore. Let's hope that he can make the most of that second-round pick. I mean, you can add Bonner, you can add Cater, you could add Needham, Cam Smith, and maybe Storm Duck. Again, you have evaluations on people, Chris Greer, but you got to take a case by case. What he's doing with this secondary, finding guys post facto, is exceptional if it all indeed plays out the way it's looking. And I think it looks pretty darn good. Again, not a huge fan of Greer, but I got to call it the way I call it, fairly. So Jackson came out and said he's in the third year of the scheme. First year he was injured. Second year he felt more confident. This year he feels very, very confident. And he's got to. He looks pretty good. It looks a little more chiseled, a little bigger than he has in the past. Strength is an issue. Still young, but he's not going to have Hunt and Connor inside being that veteran presence. I like Brewer, but he is not Connor. And so his confidence, his play needs to be commensurate with the money that he's getting. He's now a vet leader. I mean, if you look at this unit, you would have to say, obviously, Tehran. Brewer's come in. He's expected to be a leader, but he's not been on his team. And then Jackson. These are the three big guys, quote unquote, that are supposed to run this offensive line. So Jackson, I love the kid. I think he's a good kid. I don't think he's played all that well. I think he's been more hype around his play, but he has gotten better. And this is a year from hopefully his confidence is legit. We'll see going forward. Big year for him. Now, speaking of Brewer and Connor Williams, his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, says he's going to be ready for week 1. I don't know. That could be talk. If he is, that's crazy. And it kind of will create a little bit of a focus point, what we got here between Brewer and Connor. I don't know. If he does, then there might have been some shenanigans about how bad that injury was. And it might have came out of the Connor and Rosenhaus camp to kind of shy the Dolphins away. Because it doesn't make sense that if he starts week 1, something somewhere wasn't done right. Either they didn't portray themselves in the right way. Dolphins didn't vet the situation the right way. Long way to find out what is what. We got Brewer. Hopefully he's the guy for us. Let's see if Connor actually indeed gets signed and plays week 1. It's hard. I mean, at this stage, it's a little getting late, but not too late. If he's not actually practicing the next week or two, I don't think it's going to be week 1. I think it could be more than that. He could get signed, and if like maybe 4 games in after like a PUP or a IR, he comes back and plays. But that will be very interesting. Anyway, Ogden talked about he's playing the Judon role with the Ravens. I see it in some ways in the run defense and maybe even a blitzing to an extent. The coverage thing will be interesting because Judon provides pretty darn good coverage. And so I don't think that's fully equal. Ogden said he's playing a Judon role. I think in some ways, I don't know if all. If he can cover like Judon, that's going to be an exceptional signing for us. I thought that was a pretty interesting bit as well. Quinton Bell, you could see him here. What a total. This guy is so jacked, 238, all kind of statistics that are off the charts, over 41 vertical, crazy broad jump, shuttle runs insane, former receiver, turned to edge guy. He got the orange jersey. He is a definite guy that people have their eyes on. Connor, I think it's Connor, said that it was an effort. You don't see the effort that he's bringing daily. And you could tie in that orange jersey, say, oh, this guy is on the trajectory of production. But in my little time in junior college, pretty good school though, I got to see the psychology of coaches. There were guys on the team that were never making this team as starters or even backups. But the way they played, and I was one of them, they used us as dogs. And the dog part was to get other guys or guys that they thought had really good talent or were close to keep fighting and pushing to grind this thing, ironing, sharpening iron. So when you hand out these red jerseys, Doesn't mean that the guy was all world in a day, but he's a focal point psychologically for the coaches to say, look, we're signaling this guy who's not supposed to be in there. Look at the way he hustles. You better get you behind and start hustling as well. And so the way they do things is not always equal to production, but the overall psychology of the team is tied into this stuff and how they handle the guys that, oh man, this guy's really got a shot. Or, oh man, this guy's effort's getting signaled. I better get myself. And so it drives the psychology of this. For me, it was the spring ball and then practice and stuff like that. So, but this guy clearly is popping. He's being recorded as popping. He's got insane metrics. He fits perfectly with what Weaver likes to do as far as this defense, the style, and how it can be utilized. But will that production carry over into the scrimmages, into the preseason? It's going to be critical for him. I'm very excited to see. I love these guys. I love the underdogs and walk-ons. It's like ingrained in my mentality because that's who I was. This is a guy, though, you could find stashed on your practice squad. But if he does make it and the production's there, it could cause a very interesting cut because there's a lot of guys on this edge. And how can you fit them all in there? It could actually end up constricting, like I showed with the Ravens roster, how they only had like 5 interior D linemen. It was like 2 or 3 DIs and then 2 DNs. And so I think we might keep 6 interior linemen, but maybe if this guy really comes through and pans out, they might be so hard to cut these edge type guys that they go down to that 5 and someone who you might not expect on the inside to get cut. So it'll be very interesting to see that going forward. Now, Peely is a guy that I like, but he kind of was very quiet. I think the guy's got crazy talent as far as his prototype, his size, his speed, but I'm not sure if he's been in the oven long enough. But he's been popping lately. Phillips, he was doing a drill. You could see it. He was going through the lateral drills through the pads on the ground, back and forth. And you could tell that he's not going 100% yet. You could see that his forward motion is one thing, his attack and explosion. But to me, I've seen him do it before. He looks a little pulled back on his lateral. He started doing lateral drills just the other day. And it's natural. The ACL is most stressed when you start. It's the anterior is this lateral stuff. And so what I'm seeing from him, I think that he's definitely going to stay on the PUP and come back maybe week 5 or something beyond that, or whatever. I don't see him being ready week 1. He looks a little too tentative, but we'll see. Things can change fast. Kamara versus Paul today. Paul, if you see his skills, he's a better pass blocker than run blocker. It's hard to bull rush him because he's so big. Kamara, he lacks a little bit of the lateral agility type stuff. He's explosive. He can kind of get to the edge, but his favorite move is the bull rush. And so there was a back and forth. Paul drove him out on the horn. He might have got his hand on the quarterback, but there was a battle back and forth all day. But really, Kamara's strength is also the strength of Paul. So this must have been a very, very interesting matchup. I really would have liked to see it. But I do think that Paul, from a prototype skill set matchup, has the edge. Because if your strength is bull rush, you ain't bull rushing this kid. I mean, occasionally you might be able to outside or inside and come back in and catch him when he's off balance. But straight bull rush, you ain't moving him. And I don't think Kamara's really the best at that. Coming back inside and driving type thing. So it would have been very interesting to see that play out. But that's really the stuff on for today, guys. Injuries, I think, are the most fundamentally critical and realistic observations we can get at this stage. So we just pray that there's no serious injuries. But everything else, I think, has to have a little bit of a caveat on it because guys really know each other by now. And so it does take away from the veracity of like the actual what we're seeing on the field, on the positive side and a little bit maybe on the negative side. So it's good to see what we're doing so far. There is some pop, but this matchup against the Falcons all the way up into the preseason game is going to be so fun and so critical. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you on the road from New York City, live from New York City. Curtis, I appreciate all you guys do. I thank you for everything. So be well, go Fins, Curtis out. My leg's falling asleep. All right, done. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.